All right, we will adjourn the Board of Education closed session and reconvene the Board of Education open session meeting at 7:03. And we would like to open tonight's meeting welcoming Emiliano Conrad. He looks like Fernando's grandson. This is the grandson of our MOT director, Fernando Martinez, to the MUSD family. Emiliano was born on September 23rd, weighs 6 pounds, 3 ounces. So, welcome to the family. All right. With that, we will ask Wild Rose to come and lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening, Board of Education, Superintendent, Cabinet, parents, teachers, and audience. I am Sophia Baya, and we're from Wild Rose School of Creative Arts.
Hi, my name is Victoria Macias. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. You may be seated.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Calderon. We would now like to tell you a little bit about Wild Rose. First, I love the art classes that the school provides.
Hi, I'm Samuel Chiba Bugro. At Wild Rose, we teach multiple subjects, and my favorite one is math.
Hi, I'm Kylie Valentine. At Wild Rose, our teachers are funny, nice, and loves all of us kids.
Hi, I'm Maya Ruiz. Now we have some special presentations to make. Since we are an art school, we did some special portraits.
The first portrait is of Dr. Catherine Thurosian, Superintendent.
Our second portrait is Celine Lockerbie.
Now, when you hold this one up, make sure the camera gets a picture of these. These are great.
Our third portrait is of Maritza Travanti as board member. Our fourth member is Brian J. Wong, board clerk.
Our next member is Rob Hammond as vice president.
And this one's got to be big, big and bold. Big and bold.
And last, and most important, Ed Gilliland as board president.
Okay, I've got a virus, so I'm not going to shake your hand, but I really appreciate this. That's me.
Oh, man. And each portrait was done by the student that presented it to you. They did these portraits themselves. Okay, here we go. Kids, you each get a certificate, and then we're going to take a picture, right? Okay, Samuel. And you're going to go stand there because we're going to take a picture of you guys. Maya. Sophie.
Put it over our face. I will know when you're done. All right. Bring these along and we'll get a picture with you. Sure.
Can you find your artist and stand behind him? This would be great. Oh, Sam, you forgot to say something about me. Come back. Remember? Remember, Sam? The greatest principal ever? That you love your principal? I'm teasing him. I said, Sam, be sure you throw in you love your principal. Come on.
You're an awesome artist. You're by far the best. Good job. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
One picture with that and one picture with. How's that? All right. Now, show your portraits. I'll show 'em. We're gonna do one without. Okay, cool. Without, either way. You're looking good, brothers, either way. Over here, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, one with. We gotta go one with. I love this.
This may be the best thing I've ever gotten while I've been on the board. Thank you.
All right, I think this is better than the portrait I got at Knott's Berry Farm. Good job, guys. All right, thank you so much. We so appreciate Wild Rose and all they do there. At this time, we will administer the oath of office to our student board member from Canyon Oaks High School, Mountain Park School, Ashley Mendez, Dr. Therosian.
Ashley, why don't you join me here? I'd like to administer the oath of office and then invite Mr. McKendrick to tell us a little bit about this extraordinary young lady, and then the podium will be yours. Do you want a copy?
Yes.
There you go. Start with, I state your name.
I, Ashley Mendez.
Here, wait, let's make it short. Say it again.
I, Ashley Mendez.
Do solemnly, oh, you know what?
I'm
You don't
sorry.
have to follow me. You're good.
I, Ashley Mendez, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I will take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, Ashley.
Thank you.
Welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Take this. Mr. McKendrick, why don't you tell us a little bit about Ashley's background?
Thank you, Dr. Trozian. I will tell you guys a little bit about Ashley. Ashley has been with us now. This is her second year at Canyon Oaks High School, and she is very energetic. She's very positive. She's created a culture of this positivity, a college-going culture. She, like many students, are here at Canyon to get back on track. And not only does she have her sights set on graduating on time, but to go to college. So she's taking the classes she needs to go to college and doing something very important, which is meeting with our Compass team, which is our counselors and other seniors, every Tuesday after school. And what they do is they have guest speakers. They go over different scholarship opportunities, and they apply for financial aid like FAFSA and colleges. So we know that she is on her way to get many of those scholarships this year on her way to college. And so for that, she has earned her way to be here and is excited. And we're excited for her. Thank you.
Good evening, President Gilliland, members of the board, Dr. Torreson, members of cabinet, friends and families of the Monrovia community. I am Ashley Mendez, a senior at Canyon Oaks High School. It is my pleasure to represent both Mountain Park School and Canyon Oaks High School for the 2019 through 2020 school year as a school board representative. I am grateful for the opportunity I have to serve in this capacity and look forward to a new school year. I am pleased to report that we had our back to school night on Thursday, September 5th at 6 p.m. We had several families and staff members in attendance, including our board vice president, Rob Hammond, board member, Maritza Travanti, assistant superintendent, Dr. Sue Kaiser, and chief financial officer, Connie Wu. That evening, we had introductions and ice cream, after which parents and students had the opportunity to meet with teachers, counselors, and administrators in order to learn about school-wide expectations, our instructional focus, career pathway, opportunities, and graduation requirements, extracurricular activities, and incentives. We had two amazing teachers over the summer head into retirement and move into other schools in Miss Ann Denai and Mr. Tom Rosenstein. We will miss them dearly, but are pleased to welcome in two new teachers to our school, Mr. Nihan Nuhan, who teaches science, and Miss Sandy Dove, who teaches math. With some new faces and few other changes, we are really looking forward to what this year has in store for us. I would like to thank everyone who has supported our schools over the years and look forward to representing Mountain Park and Canyon Oaks High School this upcoming school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Would you like to take your seat at the board with your colleagues?
Thank you so much, and welcome to the board, Ashley. We appreciate you being here. Tonight in closed session, we discussed several human resources, personnel issues, but we took no formal action. I guess I should do the roll call, too. I kind of skipped over that, but all board members, staff, and cabinet are present. For the order of business, Dr. Throsian, are there any changes?
There are none.
Hearing none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of the Board of Education meeting on September 11th. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Huff, please take the vote.
Board Member Wong?
Abstain.
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board Member Travanti?
Yes.
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board President Gilliland?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Then the Board of Education minutes for September 17th. Could I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Huff, please take the vote.
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board Member Travanti?
Yes.
Board Member Hammond?
Abstain.
Board Member Wong?
Yes.
Board President Gilliland?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, moving on to board member reports. Ms. Lockerbie, I understand you have a report for us.
I do. Thank you so much, Board President Gilliland. As the board knows, the city sponsored a meeting on September 14th with the community to discuss the challenging intersection of Mayflower and Olive. Thanks go to Dr. Therosian, Ms. Wu, and Ms. Garay for allowing the meeting to take place at Monroe, and to Sean Sullivan from the city for creating the presentation. For the first 50 minutes of the meeting, Mr. Sullivan took input from the community, which included the crossing guard that crosses at Mayflower and Olive. His name is Daryl. The input from the community, including Daryl, was mainly drivers traveling Mayflower are driving too fast, are distracted, they're not paying attention, and they're not heeding the crosswalks. Parents are dropping off their kids in no parking zones on Mayflower, making it difficult and dangerous to cross at the crosswalk. The dogleg of Olive makes turning extremely difficult for drivers. And the discussion bled into concerns of other surrounding intersections, of course, like Colorado and Mayflower, Olive and Alta Vista, Monterey and California, I'm sorry, I don't know where I was just there, Monterey and Colorado, and traffic on Parker, just to name a few. The city engineers that were there had some compelling information. Putting a traffic signal at Mayflower and Olive requires warrants, which we, such as the volume of traffic, that intersection has not yet met. He also said that traffic has a design. Traffic is designed to be on Colorado or Huntington or Chestnut, not on small streets like Parker or Olive. So they will be looking at implementing ways to redirect traffic onto where it is designed to be. The following concepts would help to that end, but they would take 3 to 4 years to implement after finding the money, reaching out to the community, etc. In the meantime, the community gave input on short-term solutions to mitigate the dangers to pedestrians, such as heightened police presence, lighted crosswalks. Do you know what I mean by that? The crosswalks that have the lights in them. Pylons in the crosswalks. Drive into drop-off zones. Do you know what I mean by that? So they cut in, so there's a sidewalk, the drive-through, drop-off, and then the sidewalk. Heightened police presence. Yes, I meant to put that twice. And everyone needs to slow down and pay attention and follow the traffic and parking laws. Maybe get up a couple of minutes earlier. So the concepts are, and these are from the city. Concept A, and these are just concepts, this isn't anything that they are moving forward on, these are just things that the engineers have discussed. A is bump out the curbs at the intersection of Olive and Mayflower and prevent traffic from flowing westbound on Olive. And bumped out curbs will create a shorter distance for pedestrians to cross. Concept B is terminate North Olive and bump out the curbs on Mayflower. That would eliminate traffic on Olive and the difficult left-hand turns onto Mayflower. Concept C is terminate South Olive. Now, if you're familiar with this intersection, Olive is divided by Lucinda Garcia Park. So Monroe Elementary is on the west end across Mayflower, and Colorado is the street just north of Olive there. So the problem with terminating the South Olive aspect of that is it's already a cul-de-sac. So in order to terminate South Olive, they would have to cut through the park. I don't know if you can see the two little marks there, but they would have to cut through the park to allow residents on the south side of Olive access to their houses. Concept D is terminate both North and South Olive. And again, that cut through would have to happen for the south side of Olive. And concept E, the engineer asked me really not to talk about it because he said it was not a good idea and he doesn't want to do that. So we won't talk about option E. But those are the concepts that they shared. But basically what I want to share with the board is that we really want to get people aware of the need to be careful and slow and aware, not just at this intersection, but all intersections near all schools, because we have about 5,000 people going to about 10 sites in this small city, all at relatively the same time, in addition to everyone else in the city that's trying to get to work. So everyone is trying to everyone is in the same place at the same time. So we all need to be careful and cautious. And thank you for staying on that last slide. If anybody has would like any further information about the concepts that were discussed here, they can reach out to Chris at the numbers that are there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lockerbie. That's a really good reminder. All of our sites have traffic issues, and we've been working on these for years. I'm glad to see the city moving something here, because this is one of our worst problems. So that's a good report. Thank you. Mr. Hammond, I understand you have a report.
Last Wednesday, a week ago Wednesday, there was some activity that happened at the high school. 2 unrelated events triggered a social media firestorm that caused a lot of havoc in people's homes. My goal here tonight is not to tell people how to use social media responsibly. Of course, we as adults should probably do that. I would like to give our audience that's here and our audience at home some information about how we handle threats. The first thing we do is we call in the professionals for that to look and see if there is an actual threat. In this case, there was no credible threat. We then moved on with that. It then blew up on social media to the world was going to come to an end and people were worried about sending their children to school. The issue here that I want to clarify to the community is that if there were a real threat against a school, we would not allow your child to be sent to school. We would close this school immediately. You'd be getting a robocall, you'd be getting their email, and we would not take 1 second of a chance with somebody's safety if there were a real threat. As it was, a lot of people believed it was real. A lot of it was manufactured. The fear fed upon itself to the point that people were polarized because of it. I know each of us were getting numerous phone calls. I didn't get very many emails. I got a lot of phone calls. But I want you to know that nobody here, our primary concern, besides educating the children under our care, is to provide for their safety, number one. And if it were not safe, that school would not be open for any reason. Just know that. No one's going to take a chance. So, I had one parent tell me, well, the reason you left the school is because you need the money. Nobody needs the money to jeopardize somebody's safety. So I just want folks to hear that. If there were a real threat, the school would be closed. End of sentence. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Good reminder. Pardon me, I'm fighting a little virus, but doctor says it's no big deal, so I'm here. I just won't shake hands. Anyway, I want to thank so much the Canyon Early Learning Center staff and everyone involved with their back-to-school night 2 weeks ago. I just love the pre-kindergarten kids and their teachers and the parents. It's so great to see that spark, that beginning of their education, and the staff over there did just a terrific job with that back-to-school night. So thank you so much to all of them. Next on the agenda would normally be Ms. Mendez, but since you have another report, good. Not another report, but a few more words. So we'll be glad to hear from you.
I'd like to thank Mr. McKendrick for this opportunity and all of you, of course. And I'd also like to thank my family members that are here tonight and Mr. McKendrick, of course, and Mr. Furtick, that he's not here, but I'd like to thank him too, because without neither of them, I wouldn't be here and have this opportunity. Thank you.
Who did you bring with you?
I brought my mom, my sister, my
Could
grandpa,
you wave? There you go.
and my uncle.
Welcome.
All right. Thanks for being here to support this young lady. We so appreciate her for taking her time to be here and help us with our board work. All right, we will move on to the report from Dr. Therosian.
Well, just an announcement that our State of the Schools is coming up on October 16th at 6:30 at the Monrovia High School Pacific Performing Arts Center. Please join us. This will be an evening filled with a great deal of information and an overview of the events and accomplishments and state of every one of our schools in the district. I'd like to congratulate again our Teacher of the Year, Jennifer Malgin, who was awarded at the LA County Teacher of the Year event. And it was a pleasure to enjoy the evening, or excuse me, the afternoon with her family. On September 29th, that's this Sunday, we have a team going to the winning team to the library event. No. And we're looking forward to the scavenger hunt and to support literacy throughout the city. On October 10th at Monrovia High School, we have an educational evening for parents about vaping, and we encourage all parents to come. It's at 6 o'clock, and just learn about the trends and the dangers. And this is an area about which we have additional concerns because we are seeing a growing trend. Monroe Elementary School sponsored a march against bullying, and they were featured on Telemundo last Friday. So thank you, Monroe, for doing such a great job and promoting good behavior and positive school climate. Now, yes, absolutely. September is Suicide Prevention Month, and this is, yes. We also provide some more targeted support to our students who are usually our adults on campus notice are struggling a little bit, and we want to make sure to reach out and provide some more targeted support with social skills and additional counseling or school psychologist support. And then, of course, we also have a crisis intervention team that goes out whenever there is a need for the most intensive support of students. That we also have some additional resources on the parent link on our website. They can be accessed, and just this is school safety, student safety is our priority. As Mr. Hammond said, there is nothing more important. No learning takes place without the safety of students. And the entire board is charged with and entrusted with the safety of every student and every staff member on every campus. And so by being as proactive as possible and preventing incidents from occurring, we believe we can have establish an environment in which our students will thrive. Incidents like what we had last week also serve as reminders that each of us can contribute to the safety of our community by reporting any kind of questionable act or statement. See something, say something. Call the police immediately. Call the school, ideally the police, because that's exactly who we'll call. And the best way to mobilize a community against those who strive to disrupt our safe and secure learning environment is by standing up for that safety. And as a district, we remain steadfast in our commitment to student safety and school safety by not only refining our current practices, but by exploring new avenues through which we might continue to support and enrich the climate and that positive school climate on every campus. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the staff and leadership of Monrovia High School for their strength. They allayed the fears of students and parents and were very reassuring with their presence and their guidance. And of course, the Monrovia Police Department, who were a constant presence and source of support. So thank you to the community for surrounding and supporting our schools and our district. That's the only way for us to remain safe.
Thank you. I just have to have comment on two of the comments you made, and one is the see something, say something. This is Suicide Awareness Month, and you probably have seen something in the media or heard it on the air about suicide and the problem that has become in this country. We saw that here several years ago and put together this program and have not seen another suicide in many years. So we believe this program is effective and valuable, very important to this district and to all schools, to be aware of the needs and to be aware of the resources. And if there's something going on in a student's life that is causing them deep concern to the point they may be saying things about suicide or there's indication, if you see that, hear that, say something. Our staff, our counselors are trained and have all these resources available, and it's not like it's going to be a stigma. No, our kids are too important to let that go by. So if you see something particularly associated with a child's mental state, be sure you say something to people that can provide that help. And the other thing is the state of the schools. I know a lot of people say, well, I don't have a couple of hours to go down and hear them rattle on about the schools. This is our report to you. It's your tax money that pays for what we're doing here. And this is our accountability to the public. This is what we're doing in our schools. More importantly, even than it's your tax money and we want you to know what we're doing, is you need to know what our kids are receiving in this city. So come out on that night in October and hear what we're doing. We're always anxious for input from parents, from community members, but that's the night you can hear. We put out news bulletins periodically. We get an article here, an article there, but it's very limited what we're able to get out to you on in the media. But on this night, we're going to spend a couple of hours telling this community what it is we're doing with your money, and more importantly, what it is we're doing with the youth in Monrovia. So come out and join us that night at the high school.
I wanted to, if I could, just briefly, I kind of wanted to tie a few things together that Mr. Hammond and Dr. Thorosian have said. And when you reach out and talk to someone, see someone and say something, reach out to the appropriate person. Facebook is not the place to reach out. Facebook is not the place to reach out. If you see a problem, if you have a concern, if you're worried about safety, if you're worried about someone's personal safety, it doesn't go on Facebook. Reach out to the appropriate people. We have people in place at all of our sites. Thank you.
Mr. Gilliland, if I could also mention something. Just recently, I spent almost a good hour with Susan Hirsch over at our high school, Monrovia High School, and she took the time and walked me through the wellness center at Monrovia High School, and it's really a great location, and it's a model for other schools. I mean, we literally have visitors from other districts coming to see what our wellness center is all about. So we're very proud of that wellness center, but it has great resources, many of the ones that Dr. Tarosian just spoke about. And we have these great partnerships with services that, you know, on the spot can help us out with a child or student that is needing some assistance, or maybe it's just a need for a timeout to kind of reset and regroup. It's a very friendly, warm environment, and all students are welcome. So just know that that is available at the high school, especially during this month. But pass that on to your children, pass that on to other parents. We do have resources out there for them. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on now to public comments. The Board of Education does encourage public participation and invites you to share your views on school business. If you would like to speak tonight, be sure you haven't done it already, there are yellow speaker cards in the lobby. You can fill one of those out and give it to Ms. Huff here, and we'll make sure that you're heard. In order to do our board business in a timely, efficient manner, we do limit the input for each person to 5 minutes on each item. All right, public comments for item not on the agenda. In compliance with the Brown Act, there's a very strict limit on how much we can talk about those. We're welcome your input, but because of the Brown Act, we won't be able to discuss our any item that is brought up here tonight, and if it's not on the agenda. We appreciate your input on it, though. So are there speakers for items not on the agenda?
Yes, Board President Gilliland, I'd like to invite Melissa Taylor to the podium.
Hi, thank you all so much. I will try to keep this very brief in the 5 minutes. My name is Melissa Taylor. I am a resident. My daughter goes to Mayflower Elementary School. I'm also the local co-lead for the Moms Demand Action Group of San Gabriel Valley. And I don't want to repeat, but I think you guys did an amazing job last week with the threat that happened at the high school. I think the police did an excellent job finding it to be non-credible, and I think the high school did a great job with the quickness of the robocalls and the emails that went out. And Dr. Thorson, your email was timely as well. What I don't think a lot of people in San Gabriel Valley know is that that wasn't the only hoax last week. There was a school in Rosemead that was shut down, and there was a school in in Pasadena that was not shut down, but put on lockdown as well. So part of what I'm here for to talk about is a program that we have that's called Be Smart, and I'm going to invite Aaron, who's my leader of this program, to discuss it, and then to also discuss some actions we can take and that the LA Unified School District did as well.
Thanks, Melissa. Good evening. Thank you so much for having us here and giving us the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Aaron Eisinger. As Melissa said, I am the Be Smart lead for the San Gabriel Valley Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. You can see we have a number of members here. So what I want to talk about tonight is Be Smart is a non-political educational program that's developed by Moms Demand Action. Its aim is to inform and empower parents and adults concerned about kids, guns, and safety. It is open to people of all political stripes, genders, professions, parents, non-parents, gun owners, non-gun owners, literally anyone and everyone. who is ready to make safer communities, which based on all your remarks earlier, I think we're all on the same page there. As Melissa said, we have seen 3 different incidents or 3 different threats in the past week in our collective communities in San Gabriel Valley. And you all responded very commendably and quickly, but we still have these situations where children are fearful and parents keep their children home from school. So tonight I want to talk about 2 things. I want to talk about Be Smart, how it can make our community safer and what we can do to help you in that area. And then as Melissa said, I'm going to talk about something that LAUSD recently took to address gun violence. So I'm here because they all asked me to come, because Be Smart, the people who are familiar with Be Smart know that we know there are ways to start preventing this type of violence. And they start with us, with the adults in the room, with the parents and the gun owners and non-gun owners. These are non-political actions that we can all take to make our communities, our homes, and our schools safer. We know that in incidents of shootings on school property, in 78% of the incidents that involve a shooter under the age of 18, those guns came from their homes or from the homes of relatives. So in 78% of those cases, they access the guns from their homes or those of relatives. We also know that nearly 400,000 guns are stolen from homes and vehicles every year. And we also know that it is the responsibility of adults to keep guns out of the hands of children. So Be Smart is a 25-minute presentation that I or other trained volunteers will give in any venue, to schools, to communities, to churches, to private organizations. It focuses on the principles of safe gun storage, modeling responsible behavior, asking about the presence of firearms in homes and on premises, recognizing the role of guns in suicide, which given the month that we're in is, I think, incredibly important, and also telling others about the Be Smart message. One point I really want to underscore, this is not an anti-gun program. This is an anti-gun violence program. It's geared toward parents, not students. It's apolitical, and it is immediately actionable. We would be happy for any opportunity to bring the Be Smart program to districts, to parents, and to guardians. The second thing I want to discuss is what LAUSD was recently able to achieve. As I said before, we know that the majority of guns used in incidents on school grounds come from the home and the homes of relatives. What many California residents may not be aware of is that it is illegal to have unsecured guns in your home. Recently, LAUSD and the Los Angeles Unified School Police implemented a proactive campaign to inform parents and guardians of their legal responsibility to safely and properly secure any firearms on their premises. They crafted and sent home a letter that details the 2 state statutes that outline this responsibility: safe storage of handguns, Los Angeles Municipal Code, Section 55.21. I don't know it in detail, but, and criminal storage of a firearm, California Penal Code, Section 25100A. The letter contains, and I have an example here if you'd like to see it, the letter contains information about the role that access to unsecured guns plays in the suicides of minors across the state, and it summarized the meanings of the statutes I just mentioned. It also requires that a parent or guardian sign, date, and return a bottom portion of the form so that we can confirm that they actually went home and saw it. So why is this so important? These laws are more effective when people are following them, and right now one of our major challenges is to make sure that parents and guardians are aware of their legal responsibility to safely secure firearms. 100 people die from gun violence every single day in this country. 4 of those are children. We can do better. Last, I would like to wrap up this by volunteering my own time and that of my fellow volunteers in Moms Demand Action to bring the Be Smart message to your schools, to your communities, and to do anything we can to help craft and distribute a similar letter to parents and guardians so that they're aware of their responsibilities when it comes to responsible gun ownership. So thank you for your time and attention.
If you can, could you give Ms. Huff the information along with your contact information? Thank you.
Yeah, I believe, Dr. Throsen, you have the contact information for this group, and we're starting that process. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Are there any clarifying questions before I
We can't.
sit back
We
down?
can't
No,
really
no
discuss it.
okay.
Yeah. All right, Ms. Huff, are there other speaker cards?
Yes, Board President Gill, I'd like to invite Penny for Minnie to the podium.
Get back in here, Wild Rose teachers. There was a whole row of them, you know.
There was.
Yes. I just want to take this opportunity because I don't get to do this very often with this phenomenal board in this district. I want to thank you for the opportunity and the privilege to be your interim principal again at Wild Rose Elementary. And I want to acknowledge these teachers that came tonight to support my kids. Stand up and let's give them a hand. And it's just been so much fun. It's joyous over there. And my heart is like stolen by these kids and teachers over there. And I just want to tell you, we're on fire right now. And it's just a great place to be for our kids. And I just want to thank you for all you do to support us. And it's just been an honor to serve this time again for all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny.
And thanks to you and the staff over there. We appreciate all you guys are doing. Other speaker cards? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comments for item on the open session agenda. If you have comments for items on the agenda, you can make them now or at the time that's on the agenda. Are there speaker cards? All right, then we'll move on to an informational report and presentation. Ms. Wu, you're going to talk to us about solar panel review.
Good evening, President Mr. Gilliland, Board of Education, Superintendent Dr. Ruthian, and cabinet and community member and staff. And the PFMG Solar, they did some study in the potential with solar in our campus. I would like to invite Mr. Alex Smith to present the information and their findings and options.
Thank you very much, Connie, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to all of you tonight about solar energy for your school district. So I'll go ahead and get started with the project benefits. Cost savings to the school district, you can see $8.9 million over the 30-year term of the project, so significant cost savings going towards the general fund. Improved campus security and safety. When there's lighting underneath these solar carports in the parking lots, it increases the amount of light that's there from what's currently there. So it increases safeties, particularly during those winter months out in the parking lot areas. When it's not in a parking lot and it's used over grass or over blacktop areas, it can provide valuable shade for students and the community. And in particular for this project, we're looking at being able to replace 4 of your shade canopies that you have at elementary sites and expanding those and making them larger than what they currently are right now. So that's something else that's a benefit that comes along with it. We have created next generation science standards modules that have been aligned to those standards regarding the solar energy systems. So the data that comes out of the systems can be used in the classroom. If teachers and folks would like to use it, we do have a module that allows kids to connect with what's happening with the system. And then along with solar comes all the environmental and human health benefits, no pollution and no emissions, along with all the energy that's created, which brings good things for the district. A little bit about the historical context of utility rates in California. Going back 44 years, the compound annual growth rate is just over 5%. And while there's steeper periods and flatter periods, and it's not linear, the long-term trend is just over 5%. And so we've used 5% as what we think the utilities will do going forward. Added on to that, you've got some recent news with wildfire liability, and the chances of utility rates coming up from the utility are quite good. As Connie mentioned, we took a look at all of your Southern California Edison data, site by site, meter by meter, and then took a look at where solar may fit in and ran an analysis what things would look like in terms of cost savings. So this is a summary of that analysis here. The savings projections years 1 through 5, you've got between 200 and 240,000, and 1 through 30, you've got between 7.59 and 9.38 million. The power purchase agreement terms, which is the program that we're recommending today, there's 0 capital outlay at the beginning we would provide all the capital for design, construction, and maintenance, and then sell you power back at a cost of 13.5 cents per kilowatt hour in year one, and that would go up at 3% over the 30-year term. To put that in context of what's going on right now with your Southern California Edison bills, using just over 5.1 million kilowatt hours and spending just under $930,000 for that, you're currently at over 18 cents per kilowatt hour. So us starting in at 13.5 cents is what drives the cost saving. We're able to sell you power for less than the utility. We're looking at 5% for the annual rate of escalation for the utility, parking canopies and shade canopies as well, for just over 2 megawatts at your 10 schools. Each one of these school sites has cost savings in year one. So while most of the cost savings certainly are located at the larger sites, each and every site does have cost savings in year one. So more schools means more savings. A little look at the competition, solar versus Southern California Edison going out into the future. You can see the price going up at 3%, where Southern California Edison going up at 3.5%, we're still not coming close to catch up to those rates. So certainly a conservative look at savings going out into the future. About PFMG Solar, our primary business is doing solar projects for school districts. So we've done some recent projects nearby. Glendora Unified, Claremont Unified, San Gabriel Unified are some local projects that are complete. And we're in design and construction for Pasadena Unified and Baldwin Park Unified as well. But specializing in being able to work with the Division of State Architect for all of the plans, make sure we can close everything out with the Division of State Architect, and making sure that when we're able to build projects that people are happy with what is left behind so that we can have good references to move forward with other folks. So that's been our primary business plan, and we've had good success being the #1 partner over the last 7 years that we've been doing this. Part of the way we've been able to do that as well is to have no change orders once we get into construction. That's been a very positive thing in terms of having good relationships with our clients. So if we hit something that's not on the plans and wasn't picked up with detection, typically that's the district's responsibility to pay for. For our projects, we handle all of that. So no matter what we hit underground, it's our responsibility to fix it and move forward. So it tends to have a very collaborative effect during construction, so that we're able to move through issues as they come up. And particularly when you're building at schools that are old, we're probably going to have something that's coming up that's unforeseen. So having no change orders and not a management process is something that we found to be very successful. And that's helped us get those client references as well as being able to utilize the educational components as well. That's something that a lot of our school district partners have really enjoyed, is seeing the students connect with the educational side. We talked a little bit about DSA, but all the permits go through DSA. In terms of underground easements or anything that may be there, we do a title report as part of our due diligence, where we find out what's underground and make adjustments as needed as well. So that's included as part of this. And being able to work with DSA, we've got to make sure we close out all of our A numbers, so we have no open A numbers with our projects. We also have an over-the-counter DSA pre-check number that allows us to get permits that same day. So the process is very expedited for us as we move through. And working at schools, safety's got to be #1. When we've got currently dozens of schools under construction, we've got to make sure that safety for all the kids and the community is #1. So we have safety standards that are very high, electrical safety standards that are very high, and that's why I've had a great track record working on our projects. The power purchase agreement is the structure that we're recommending. That's the structure where we put out all of the capital for the design, construction, and maintenance, so it's not a debt to the school district. You're not taking out a loan and paying the note off over time. We're putting out all the capital for everything that's going to happen. We will use our private capital and monetize tax credits and depreciation and pass those through to in the form of lower electricity costs to you. Typically with solar energy projects, the federal tax credit and the depreciation are the major incentives that are left. There aren't any more state incentives available in California for solar projects, just federal tax-based incentives. So the power purchase agreement is a way for public agencies to take advantage of those tax-based incentives by paying less for power. And the only charge that we have is that price per kilowatt hour that we would sell to you over time. So there's no hidden fees or any other way that we're charging you for anything. Government Code Section 4217 in California, when you're procuring renewable energy projects, provides flexibility in your procurement. That's how we've done it for every project that we've done. A little bit about what it looks like when you're on the edge of elementary school fields. You can see that we've got the shade canopies there are padded. So when the kids are going to be running around, we put pads on there. The structures are quite large in the sense that they're 40 feet wide and they're modular in width. So they can, I'll show you some site plans in a little bit. You'll be able to take a look at what that looks like. And then out in parking lots, you can see that the solar canopies in parking lots that you've seen at other places, that's the look of that. We talked a little bit about the educational programs. That solar car there is the generation 1 of that plan that we did up in the Antelope Valley High School District. Was our first project. Started out with a curriculum that we had created in the classroom that kids got excited about, morphed into a solar car team that now has 45 kids after school every day. The car looks different now. It's more advanced. It's got nice panels. And that's something that we created alongside the school district that asked for our support, and we continue to do that. So we've done that with many things. These are some pictures of some of the events. Also, creating excitement in the community when the projects go online, or a groundbreaking ceremony, or flip the switch with our mock panel there. Something that we found has been great in terms of getting people excited about the project so that people can see what's happening. And if you go ahead and switch to the next, I've got the site plans for all your sites. And let's go ahead. I think this is at the end, so I'll start. Sorry, there's only one. That's the last one. Can you go back to the beginning of this? Thanks. All right, so Brad Oaks is first. And here what you can see, if you look at these blue rectangles, those are, we're looking from above, looking down on the campuses. So A is right on the edge of the blacktop and grass area, and B is over blacktop. So what we've tried to do is locate these in places where it would be off to the side, provide a shade benefit for lunch areas or other kind of outdoor classrooms, and still allow the field to be used for what it's currently used for. Also during our site walks, Fernando was here as well with his team to be able to support us, and very helpful being able to locate all the electrical rooms. Next, you can see here at the district office in Canyon Early Learning, we're just looking at the parking lot out here. Something to note, we're not looking to take down any of the large mature trees on the south side of the parking lot. Those would all stay. So it's something important to note about this site. Can you hold on for a second so I can... Sure. I'll let you, yep, good question. Just also to note on here, the red X's with a circle around it indicate the meter locations. So we'd be going underground electrically to access those. Typically when we go underground, we're using directional boring. We're not cutting trenches through, so it makes it a lot less disruptive. That's a construction technique where we have a pit on each side and go under. So that's what we would do. Our next location here is Clifton Middle. This is right along the south end of the field there, right on the edge of that service road blacktop area. Large structure, provide a lot of shade, particularly you can imagine on the weekends, people playing sports, families being able to watch the kids play sports in the shade without bringing the easy ups. Next, we've got Mayflower. Array A is in the parking lot. You see the two little red X's indicate trees that would be removed. So there's very few trees at all coming out in terms of what we're looking at here. And then Array B, the yellow X, is an existing shade structure that's there now that we would remove and replace. And you can see how much larger it is if you look at it. It's probably about twice, maybe 3 times the size of the shade structure.
I'm sorry, you're saying so at B, there's a shade structure already there?
Correct.
So you remove it and replace it with the solar?
Yes. And next is Monroe. is similar in the sense that array A, there is a shade canopy there now that would come out, and then array B all along the blacktop. When we did the site walks there, array B was all easy up shade canopies that were temporary, so it seemed like people were looking for shade there. Next one. We've got Mountain Community Adult, Mountain Park School, and Canyon Oaks High School, where arrays A and B are in the parking lot. The next one is at the high school. So we're looking at all the parking lots at the high school, as well as some parking up in the maintenance area. Also to note, array H would cover the buses. So bus coverage to help protect them when they're parked. Something we've seen is helps protect the buses. Next is Plymouth, a shade canopy on the edge of the blacktop and the grass. Then we've got Santa Fe Middle, where we have C is out in the parking lot, A would replace an existing structure, and then B we would be looking at putting as a place for people to put bleachers underneath to watch.
C is outside the fenced area?
C is on your side, even though it's
our side of the fence.
Yeah, it's your side of the parking lot. Even though there's not a fence there dividing those two stalls, that is the property line in between that double bay row there. You just have that single bay.
Okay, concerns me a little bit that we've got a solar structure outside the fenced area, but that's okay. We can talk about that later.
Okay.
At Santa Fe, which one is outside the fence?
C.
C. That's our parking lot though, right? Is that Santa Fe's?
Yeah.
That's Santa Fe's.
Right.
Right, and A, I believe, is near the lunch area. So that would be something in terms of lunch seating, was certainly something that was exciting when we were walking. And then finally, here we have Wild Rose, where X is an existing shade canopy near where folks are eating, so that'll be much larger now. And then B would be in between some trees and a play area where it wouldn't interfere with the grass activities of the site.
I hate to interrupt your flow, but could we go back to
Sure.
Canyon Oaks?
Absolutely.
So you have two shade structures there, and is the A on the south side of the adult education building or on the north side of the adult? It's on this. It's on the north side of the adult education building, right?
Right, array A, yes.
The red X is on the adult education building.
Yes, that's the meter, yes.
And you didn't propose a canopy south of that for the parking lot south of that building. Is there a reason that you didn't propose a shade canopy for the parking lot south of the adult ed building?
No, we could move array B over,
but
and slide that down.
This would give you enough enough panels to cover the demand at this site? Is that
right.
what
We're looking
this was
at
based
roughly 80% solar fraction annually at all sites. 80% of the annual load would come from the solar over the course of the year.
And that's at each site?
At each site, correct.
Okay. All right.
And so this surface area is what would take to get there. If things need to move around a bit, that can happen, certainly.
These are fine. It's just
Yeah.
there was more capacity there that you didn't use. So
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm done. I've opened it up for questions. That was my last piece.
Oh, okay.
Can I back you up to the Monroe slide,
Sure.
which is, I don't know, page
18?
18? Not that one.
Going the wrong one.
There, that one. So A, you would remove the existing structure, that shade structure that's there. That existing shade structure is over permanently attached to the ground lunch benches.
Right.
So that doesn't, it's offset. Do you mean that it will go right over that in that place to cover those benches? Or would we need to do some more, some maneuvering, because that's where the kids eat their lunch?
Well, the idea would be to put new benches underneath them, whether they were permanent or some other type of bench. That was the idea, is that there'd be more room for more kids to be able to sit in the shade to eat. So it's not exactly right in place.
Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at, I'm looking at cost, really.
Right.
I mean, you know, if they're cemented into the ground, so if we have to move these benches, that's a cost to us.
Well, that's a cost to us. That's not.
You would move the benches?
Yes, we would move the benches, or sometimes there's basketball hoops or tetherball poles or other things that we need to move around. That would be something we would do as part of our scope.
And I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So now that we're talking about potential secondary costs once the installation is done with these structures, I imagine those structures that are over parking lots would then require restriping of parking spaces, because the configurement, I would think the poles are going to be in certain spots where there was a space before, so that would require restriping, respacing parking lots. Is that something that is covered through the plan as well?
Typically, we don't have to do that. The columns themselves are 12 by 8, and they go straight into the ground without a concrete base. So and it's 8 inches wide. The parking stripes themselves are 4 inches wide. So when it goes straight into the ground, we're able to land them right on the stripes. So we're not changing the striping or taking away parking spots. The only time that may happen would be with the ADA parking, the handicap parking. If the current parking setup that you have is not up to the current standards, DSA will make you bring them up to the standards. So we would do that as a part of our scope in terms of making sure that the handicap stalls were up to current standards. You may lose a spot or two here and there from that, but you would need to do that anyway if you were doing other work on your site moving forward. So it would be a benefit to you to be able to get that handicap parking upgrade included as a part of our project.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
I'm going to take a stab that all of your proposed spots are flexible, right? I don't want to get bogged down going from location to location saying it'll be better in one spot or another. Are any of these like, this is where they have to be?
No.
Okay, that's what I was guessing. My questions are more on the economics of this. You had just mentioned that each of these solar panels per site is expected to cover approximately 80% of the load for that site. Did I hear that
Yes,
correctly?
that's right, in the course of a year.
In the course of a year.
Right.
So, two questions from that, I guess, is why aren't you going to 100? And the remaining 20, which I assume we go through our existing provider.
Yes.
And for that existing portion, that tail piece, or whatever your term is for it, do we pay the rate of our contract of the 13 cents, or do we pay the prevailing rate of whoever that energy provider is?
Right. So in terms of the reason why we stay around 80%, when you get above 90%, you start to see the savings curve turn over and go negative. And that's because there are going to be times in the day when we are creating power that's more than what you're using. And so we will sell you the power, and then you will sell that power back to Southern California Edison and get a credit on your bill. And that's called the net metering program. The net metering program, if you buy a credit from us, the only way to get a benefit from that credit is by usage on your bill. So if you don't have enough usage, you've bought something from us that you can never go get credit for. So we size the system so there's no unused credits in your net metered account. And that's why we size the system at 80% instead of higher than that, because once you get to about 90, 95%, there will be leftover credits in your net metered account with the utility. And so that's why we try to give you some room for energy efficiency or other things you may do in terms of your load fluctuating. So 80% is our target for maximizing your cost savings.
All right, just to make sure I'm clear, you purposely designed this so during the course of the day, the district is going to be in a position to be selling energy back to Edison for the purpose of when we need to use Edison, we have to, or we can only use those credits for bills that we've incurred. Meaning we can't change our credits in for cash.
Correct.
It has to be a credit against energy that we've used.
Right.
They're not equal either. No. So even though our price is 13 cents and Edison's is whatever, 25 cents, when we're selling energy back to Edison, at what rate are we selling it back to Edison?
At what you would have paid from them minus a bit, because they've watered down the benefits of net metering by roughly 5 to 10% or so, but it's based on what you would have paid if you bought it.
And is that at the time that we deliver it, meaning that if we deliver excess power at peak hours, that our credit is potentially going to be substantially more than off-peak hours?
Yes, that's right. But I would say, just to add on to the other way that solar is saving money in your bill, because that's the energy side of your bill, is on the demand side of your bill, which is every 15 minutes they're measuring how much power you're using, and the highest 15-minute interval in the month is multiplied times the charge. And so that's over half your bill. So what solar's doing is when you're using power, which is mostly air conditioning is your largest load, is when the sun is out. And so it matches up very well with solar. Air conditioning usage and solar generation match up very well together. And so that's where most of the cost savings is coming from, is by feeding your air conditioners rather than buying from the utility. And the net metering, we're not net metering that often. You know, I would say that the design isn't so much to net meter to create the value, that net metering does happen sometimes, particularly during the summer, particularly at elementary sites that may not be open. But the bulk of the savings is coming through feeding the air conditioning units themselves during the day when you're using it to lower the demand.
So when when school is not in session, for example, obviously we're generating a significant amount of power that we have no use for because air conditioners are not on. So how long are those credits good for?
12 months.
12 months. So the idea is to rack up a lot of credits during the summer and then use them throughout the course of the year.
That does happen, yes. I'd say the idea is to do both, to reduce demand and to use net metering credits. And combining the energy and the demand is how you get cost savings. In terms of your other question regarding the remaining roughly 20% of your bill, by doing solar, you move into a new tariff as well, which provides cost benefits for that remaining 20%.
It provides tariffs?
By moving into solar, you have the option to switch your tariff, and that will provide cost savings on that remaining 20% that's left over still from the utility.
Okay. What happens, if I understood correctly, this is a 30-year contract.
Correct.
Under what conditions, if any, are we able to exit the contract?
There are buyout options. There are 3 buyout options throughout the life of the contract. So you like to purchase a system at fair market value that's set by an independent auditor. There are options to do that.
What happens if you're unable to provide the energy that you're suggesting that the savings is going to be? Meaning that the panels become ineffective?
Sure, it's not working. Just something also to keep in mind is that the only way we're generating any revenue is by selling you power. Because we've put out all the capital in the front. The only way to make anything back is by selling power, so we want it to work. But if it's not working, there's a production guarantee in the contract that requires us to make you whole for what you should have had from us. So there is a production guarantee in the contract that says we will produce this much, and if we don't, we need to make you whole financially for what we should have.
Is that number static for the entire 30 years, or is it
No.
going to diminish?
It's changing.
Down.
Yes.
At what point in time do you have a responsibility, if at all, to upgrade to better, more efficient, higher producing panels?
Well, I would say we're already getting to your max production in terms of how big you'd want to get in terms of your solar energy system now. But that said, in the future, if there were to be some kind of other technological breakthrough, we could certainly switch things out if it worked for both of us to do that. There is nothing that prevents us from doing that. We have not done that yet to date, but that's typically because the systems are producing like they're supposed to, and they've been working well. So there hasn't been a need to change anything because we've been hitting our targets, and the districts have been receiving their savings.
But you've been doing this for 7 years, right?
I think I misspoke. Our first contract is 2011, Antelope Valley High School District.
Okay. Okay. All right. So still relatively new in the curve.
Well, they're halfway through their project. They signed a 20-year power purchase agreement. And I would say, at the 29 districts that we're currently under contract, everyone's in very similar situations in terms of looking at the current scenario where Southern California Edison has unknown futures. They won't provide guaranteed future pricing, where our project does provide future pricing, as well as carports and shade canopies. And there is some financial risk. If Edison somehow has their rates flat or go down over a long period of time, you may spend more on the solar project. That's certainly the financial risk that you're taking on. But the other side of that is the risk of staying with Edison and not getting the shade canopies. And that's so they're one side of the coin or the other side. But that said, we would look at changing out technology should it come up. I would say battery storage is something that we have looked at. There are some new incentives coming next year that look like it would bring the cost down, so it would make financial sense at this time. Battery storage, we would not recommend it at this time. I would say at Pasadena Unified School District, we had battery storage in our contract with them. And then Southern California Edison really changed the rates to make the batteries less beneficial. And so we took them out of the contract.
Sure.
And just doing solar now, solar only.
If there's damage to the panels or the structures, either by our fault or act of God or who knows what, who's liable for that repair?
So we have total liability for the project.
So regardless of what happens, if somebody
Vandalism,
gets in a parking lot, runs into it, for
right.
example,
Yes.
Or probably more probable is a baseball starts cracking your panels in various sites or whatever.
Yep.
So that's part of your maintenance, is to make any repairs to damage cells regardless.
Yes, and we've had delivery trucks clip the corners on occasion. Every now and again, we've had some issues and we go out and fix it. Absolutely. And we notice that it's happening because we see the production drop, and then our operations and maintenance team starts working to try and fix the issue.
I assume that you retain the ability to go after an insurance company if somebody's automobile plows into one and knocks it over. You're going to go after their insurance company to pay for your repairs, right?
We might probably. I mean, typically we're winning on the car solar canopy dent
or
battle.
If it's our truck, you'll go after our insurance, or
we haven't yet. Typically, it's all we assume that it's going to happen, and it's included as part of what we do. And our
but you retain that right to do
yes,
that. Yes. And you own this facility, this infrastructure on our land.
Correct. We would own the asset.
And if,
yes.
for some unknown reason, your company goes out of business, what does the contract say happens to the equipment?
Right. So a couple things on that issue. I would say the first pieces that we're not going to go out of business. We
Well, yeah, we don't.
but
Yeah,
I understand.
nobody is, right.
I just want to provide more context. We were acquired by Constellation last October, which is owned by Exelon, which is on the NASDAQ stock exchange. It's a very large firm. So in terms of financial stability, we've got financials that are publicly available. But should that happen, should we fold, our asset is a revenue generating asset. So in whatever proceedings that would take place, someone else would pick it up and you would write your check to someone else because people would want that piece of paper because it generates revenue moving out to the future.
So for the term of this contract, you own the facility on our land. Suppose at the end of that 30-year contract, we say, boom, we don't want to do this anymore. Does the contract require you to remove it?
Yes, there's 3 options for at the end of the 30 years. We can remove it at no cost to you. Just come take it all away, and all the underground conduit, all the footings. Buy it at fair market value, set by an independent auditor, or renew the contract. Perhaps the steel's still good, put new panels up, and then the new term, the price would be much lower because you didn't have to put in all that steel investment. Okay. But those are the 3 options at the end of the term.
Question, sorry. What's the lifespan of the panels and the inverter? So the contract would be 30 years. Talk to me about what the lifespan is expected to be.
Right.
And what you would do if that's before 30 years.
Sure. So the inverters have a 10-year warranty that can be extended. The panels have a 30-year warranty now. So the panels would be under warranty. The inverters, we typically extend the warranties out into the future. And we really want these things to produce. If they're not producing, it's a big problem for us because we've modeled this out into the future. And so the production is really key for it to work. But that said, failure does happen. We sometimes will see that, and that's one of the benefits of the power purchase agreement is that our maintenance team is focused on solar production all the time, so understands how to deal with the maintenance issues that come up. But you're right, there are scenarios where some of the equipment, the life may be shorter than the term of the agreement, but the production guarantee in the contract really doesn't get into the individual warranties. It just has a blanket kilowatt hour number. So we've got to hit that number, whatever technology we have. We've got to hit that number.
And is that number 80% of our usage today?
No, that number, well, the expected production would be roughly 80% of your
guaranteed
usage.
production.
And the guaranteed production is typically somewhere 90–95% of that number.
Okay.
That's what the guaranteed number is. We've never had to pay out on any production guarantees.
Well, you're only 7 years old, yeah. When that equipment starts to be 20 years old,
well,
you will have to look at the cost benefit. Do we not provide as much and take less money, or do we replace equipment? So.
And we've currently got 220 sites built, and we haven't missed a production guarantee yet for any sites in operation. So we've done a good job of making sure that they work, but that is something that is in the contract, absolutely.
So when you're speaking about warranties, why should I really care? Because aren't you liable for absolutely everything? If I understood this correctly,
Yes.
and maybe I'm simplifying, I hope I'm not, but you are responsible for absolutely everything that happens with this particular structure, whether it's damaged, whether it works, whether it doesn't work, doesn't matter.
That's right.
Right? You were 100%. So the warranty is really for you, not for me. Is
Right.
that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
I have several questions. First of all, thank you so much for being here tonight. You spoke a little bit about batteries. I wanted to ask, when you mentioned the high peak demand load, a way to offset that is to have batteries. Yes? Because if we have batteries, then we're storing the energy, and during the high peak demand load, we can draw energy off of the batteries. Is that incorrect?
I would say that's not incorrect. That could be done. The only issue in terms of making sure that it's cost beneficial to you to do that is that the cost of the batteries has to be lower than the savings that it provides. Currently, the cost of the batteries is higher than the benefit that it produces out the other side. Part of the reason that is because the solar energy systems are reducing the demand so much that it's hard for the batteries to add to what the solar's doing. The spikes that are very narrow in nature, that don't have much kilowatt hours in it, the solar's already taking that out. So what's left over for the batteries to do, they've got to do more. And, excuse me.
So I you know, at 3 o'clock, every door in this school district is open, letting the air conditioning go out the door, and they're open for 15 minutes. So that's a high peak demand load. We know 5 days a week, half of the school year, at 3 o'clock for 15 minutes, those doors are going to be open. And, you know, I'm looking for ways to mitigate that. And I would think that it would be with the battery, but you don't currently offer or install batteries as part of the system. Is that correct?
We do offer it, but we haven't put it in yet just because we haven't been able to show a positive cost savings.
Okay.
So
you haven't put it into
an existing school site. We've modeled it out many times, and we had a signed contract with Pasadena to do it. But we ultimately elected not to do it and provided them a deduct in the contract to pull it out. So we sold them less things.
I talked at length yesterday with Palmdale School District, outside, and he said they have batteries.
Right.
I guess he got them not from you.
Well, he bought them with Prop $39 grant money.
Okay.
So that was kind of one-time monies. So, you know, if there were one-time monies where there was no cost to the batteries, they would save.
Okay.
And
because they implemented that in 2011. So
right.
That was probably different availability. To continue my questions, you said that you did a cost analysis. You evaluated our energy consumption district-wide, site by site, broken down site by site, correct?
Yes.
How far back did you go?
1 year.
Just 1 year. Would you, is that as far back as you would go? You wouldn't go back 3 years?
Well, we typically go back 1 year.
Okay.
We could always go back more years. What we found is the loads are fairly stable as long as the student populations have been fairly stable. But that said, that we usually go with 12 months worth of data.
You mentioned at a few sites, or maybe it was just one site, thankfully, removing trees. Is there any sort of maybe landscaping grant that you have access to, or that we could have access to, so that we could replace those trees in a better place, responsible replanting, you know, native trees and water-wise? Is that something that we have access to, or that we have access to through your company?
Yes, we typically replace trees 1-to-1 with a 24-inch box of a species of district selection to mitigate that. And we don't take out large, mature trees that we know people are going to really like. So with the ones we have looked at, there's really only a couple in here. We're kind of the smaller ones in the parking lot islands.
I noticed that on the pictures that you're showing, the structures, some of the structures have a north-south orientation, and some have an east-west orientation. That's going to receive different light and generate different levels of electricity. Have you taken that into account in the evaluation that you've presented to us today?
Yes, every array that you see has had a annual by 15-minute production analysis done on it for each one. So A and B were run separately based on where they're facing, where you are, and the tilt of the panels.
Okay. You mentioned during your presentation open A numbers. What is that?
Going to the Division of State Architecture, you get an A number for your project, so it kind of tracks your projects along. If you don't close out the project with the Division of State Architecture, that A number will remain open and can slow up future construction projects that you may want to do. So for us, closing out the A numbers so that in the future, when there may be other work to do, is something that is really important.
Those are all my questions so far. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I hate to say this, particularly with the camera rolling. We're nowhere near there right now. Pasadena is near there, though. We're not considering it, so nobody get all panicky over it. If we ever had to close a site because of declining enrollment, what does the contract say about terminating our agreement with you at one site?
You can still have the same buyout option to buy the system out. And if there's a
So we
site that you
could
think
buy
that
the
may
system
happen,
out and close the school?
yes.
Doesn't it still generate electricity though?
You would be buying it out and
that begs the question,
taking it
and maybe
down.
we should just start from this part. That would assume then that we have a minimum amount of energy that we need to purchase, right? Because if we had no minimum amount of energy, then it would have no bearing on us whatsoever, and we'd have no reason to want to buy that out.
Well, if you were going to close the school and not have it open and operational,
right?
We could wheel the power through the system. Edison does have a program to do that. You know, financially, that typically isn't beneficial. If you still use the facility as some kind of training grounds or something else where there's still usage.
No, I'm talking about the actual reason why we would have to do any of that, right? Because if our contract is just to buy energy from you, that would suggest that the smaller amount of energy that we use, the smaller that our bill would be. There's obviously a point that it does not become economically feasible for you, and I'm sure you will have bonds that you have to pay and so forth. So I'm assuming that with each site, whether it's a site or a district, we have a minimum amount of power or electricity that we need to purchase from you. Is that correct?
Well, I would say that the systems have been sized to maximize your cost savings. If there was a site you didn't want us to build on.
We understand that, but
Right.
but in this particular case, the point that Mr. Gillen is pointing out is we have a dramatic scenario in which a site is closed, right? I mean, that has nothing to do with whether we're saving money or cutting energy.
Right.
It's closed, right? So if it's closed, just for simplicity's sake, let's just say the power usage is 0, right? If we don't have a minimum amount of power that we have to buy from you, why would we possibly consider entering a buyout clause with you?
Well,
why would we just not do anything?
Can I ask the question this way?
Oh.
Does this contract require us to purchase a certain amount of electricity at each site?
All of it. Everything we make, you have to buy. That is a requirement in the contract.
So if you can make it and we have a closed school, we still have to pay you for the capacity of the system, not for what we're actually using.
For whatever comes out of the solar system. That's correct.
Comes out.
Whatever comes out.
If the school's shut down and there's no demand, nothing's coming out.
Well, it'll still come out. It'll just go back into the grid, right? So I would say for other schools that have been facing this issue that we're working with, that are considering this, we are taking the schools that they may close and putting them at the end of our construction process.
Yeah.
So that if those need to ultimately not be built, we'll just pull those smaller sites out.
That wouldn't apply to us. I hope we would never close a school. There's, like I say, there's no plans. We just need to know what our financial responsibility if that happens.
But doesn't everything go into the grid?
Well, you're either using it on site or it's going into the grid.
So
when you're using
first it goes into the site and then it goes into the grid. So we don't get the money off the grid that we've put into, we get it off the solar panels first. So there's a transformer on these structures, is that correct?
Well, so we use an inverter to go from DC to AC, and the inverters are all hanging up on the columns.
Okay.
So they're not large fenced off structures like they used to be. They're all hanging up on the columns so that our electrical systems are up on the columns, and then we run everything underground back home to the meter.
So the first place the site gets the electricity is from the inverter.
Yes, the inverter hooks up to your main switchgear, and so the solar system is going to go to your load.
When I turn on a light,
right.
it takes it
Coming
from the
solar.
inverter first.
Right.
And then if I turn off the light and it's daytime, then the rest of that energy goes into the grid.
Correct. And you
And-
get a credit
and
on
do
your
you-
bill.
And does your company get the money for that? Because
No, you do.
Okay.
You get the credit on the bill.
Well, no, we get the credit. You get the money from
So we're selling.
Edison, yeah?
No, we're not getting any money from Edison. We're only getting money from you. So you would be purchasing power from us and getting credits on your bill or offsetting your load. I think that's the key.
So the bottom line is, whatever the system produces, we're buying at 13 cents, right? So is it, from a waterfall standpoint, again, big picture, right? So whatever you provide first goes to the school, goes to whatever the site is, and they use whatever they can use. If the site uses more than you're producing, the gap comes from Edison, and we get a bill from Edison for that. On off-peak hours, it flows through our site and then goes to the grid. The power that goes to the grid, we still pay you 13 cents per unit, and then we get a credit from Edison at whatever that prevailing rate is based on whatever their calculations are. And well, I don't know that you said this, but is there ever a point in which the credit that we get from Edison is less than what we pay you for it?
The net metering credit is based upon the time of the day and the on-peak, off-peak, or mid-peak periods. So when solar is net metering on an on-peak period,
Right.
there's financial benefit to the district. When solar is net metering to an off-peak period,
Right.
you're paying more at that time on the energy side.
So what is off-peak? When the sun is down?
Well, I'd be happy to provide you with a list of all the time of use periods in terms of when they're set up.
Historically, when the sun is gone, right?
Yeah, no?
I'm sorry, is there?
Off-peak. Off-peak.
When the sun's down, it's not generating electricity.
Right, off-peak is typically not, it's typically when there's less load. So, middle of the night, 3, 4 in the morning, all the way into the early morning hours, that's off-peak.
So the parts where I'm thinking we're sending the most power to the grid is before schools open, during that couple of hour window, and immediately after schools close, right? Theoretically, that would be when we start shutting things down, but the sun is still making juice.
And I would say that the solar production looks like a natural curve.
Right.
And between 10 and 2 is really when most of the action's taking place.
Okay.
In terms of the production.
I'm sure you have charts in here, and I don't know that we need to belabor the mechanics. I just want to make sure I've got the concepts down of how things are supposed to go.
Sure.
But the bottom line is we're paying 13 cents flat rate, 24 hours a day that it generates. And whatever we don't use goes back to the grid. We get a credit, which may or may not be above 13 cents, that we can apply to our overage or the gap that we need to pick up from Edison,
Right.
which is why we need the 80%. This is helping me understand why you're at 80% and not 100%, because if we had to purchase 100%, that would not be very effective for us.
Right, and the math that we've done and the calculations that we've done, and happy to share any supporting calculations with any of you if you'd like, takes all this into account, and there are cost savings in year one
Right.
for all sites and throughout the term of the contract.
You keep saying year one, so
Right.
so what happens in year two
Well,
or year
and
5?
beyond. Every year there's cost savings in the contract, according to the numbers that we're looking at. Now, at the end of the day, if Edison's rates stay flat or go down, you certainly will pay more.
Right.
There's no doubt. But if Edison maintains the trends that it has maintained,
Right.
and you take into account the fact that SB 100 is mandating 100% renewables and wildfire liability is $10.5 billion, chances are that Edison's most likely going up. And if it does, you will save considerable dollars.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
let me just step in here for a second as the president. We've been on this topic for quite a while, got a huge amount of great information. At some point, we're going to have to decide where to go with this. This is not an action item, so we're not going to vote to approve a contract or anything tonight. So I don't want to cut off questions that you need to consider where we go from here. I mean, there's some things I think we're going to have to do before we would enter into a contract like this.
I have a question that I think is on that line.
Okay.
President Gilliland said we're not ready to do this. If we said we're ready to do this, let's do it. How long to begin the implementation, and how long would the entire implementation take?
Total process would be roughly 18 months, with the first 6 to 9 months in design, followed by mobilization and construction of a good 4 to 6 months. The construction goes quite fast. The construction is the fastest part of the process. Our team moves very quickly, but in terms of the title report and going through the due diligence to take a look at the easements, that can take some time in terms of navigating what those easements are and talking with other people to get their consents and releases to be able to build over them. And then the DSA design process to move through typically gets us, we're talking about 9-10 months. But once we can go over the counter. So once we get to the counter, things can go quite fast.
I just have one question. You guys have asked wonderful questions. I just have one. It's a fixed energy output. You're building a system to do X. This is 30 years. None of us are going to be here in 30 years. Not a one. And we just built a fixed system for someone to deal with. How do you handle an increase in demand?
If there's an increase in demand, we would build more solar. And we'd be happy to do that.
And add it to the contract.
Right, sign a new contract to add more solar onto the site.
Okay.
So you were talking about 4 months of construction.
Might be alive.
Has that typically been done in the summers or during school? And what kind of safety precautions do you take if school's in session?
Sure. We try to do as much as we can during the summer, but it's challenging to do that, to line everything up, to really tee that off. So right now we're building at several dozen sites and making sure that our crews understand building at the schools, just like they have for our other sites, is critical to how we pick them. We've used the same set of subcontractors that have been worked really well for us. Rosen Electric, CSI Electric, major firms that have done great work for us. And they understand that when they're working around the schools, that safety and timing and listening to the principals and listening to the staff is paramount to being able to get any more of projects from us out into the future. So we're very careful about who we bring onto the sites, and safety is obviously critical to be able to do that.
All right. Are there more questions? Or
Yes, something that piqued my curiosity early on in your presentation. You mentioned, I'm not sure if it was South Pasadena or Pasadena Unified you're working with, and their contract is 20 years. Is that something you said earlier?
No, Pasadena is, I believe, is 30 years.
Okay, so you didn't mention.
Palmdale was 20. And
Okay,
that was from before.
can you explain to me why a district would consider 20 years as opposed to a 30-year, which is what
Sure.
you're presenting here tonight?
At the time, back in 2010, 11, 12, and Palmdale was happening, we couldn't get anyone to do deals that long, finance deals that long. They had a 20-year cap. When Constellation acquired our firm, and Constellation owns energy assets all around the country, they're comfortable doing longer deals, which allows us to provide lower energy rates to provide more cost savings earlier on in the project. Okay. So that's why we've been doing that.
And then one final thing.
Sure.
You seem to have a niche in this industry and working with school districts. Do you have a competitor in Southern California, or are you the only company doing solar for school districts?
I would say we are the only company whose core focus is working with school districts and public agencies, in the sense that we're not doing residential, we're not building solar panels, we're not doing solar farms out in the desert. We're not a manufacturer of any technology. So in terms of just focusing in to deliver these kinds of projects, I would say that we're unique in that sense, in the sense that there's no change orders. It's a very collaborative construction effort. When we invariably break stuff, we will fix it and not have change orders and RFI requests for your team to manage. So I would say with those items that we do have a unique niche.
All right, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
So have you given our staff a list of districts that you've done projects for and what years you did those projects? Because, you know, one of the things I'm going to ask our staff to do is to go talk to some of the districts with the oldest systems.
Great.
And make sure the follow-through's been consistent through all the years. And honestly, the other thing I just want you to know is I'm going to ask our staff to get our SCE representative over here to look at your proposal and just look at your numbers and tell us what SCE thinks about the numbers. So we're going to need that kind of information before we decide to go.
Okay.
But you have given us that information on other districts, right?
Yes, I've given
And the
a
years.
complete list of the references for all the projects that we've done.
Okay, thanks. Is there any other comments, questions?
I just want to say thank you for the information. I think you made this far more clearer than any manual could. This is somewhat complex, but it just seems that the bottom line is you're really much more consolation as far as just a utility than a solar company. I mean, you're just looking for an income stream, so things seem to be a little bit more uniform.
I want to second what Brian's saying is, Brian and I have been on this board for a very long time, and we've been talking solar all the time, and every time the answer comes back, oh, it's not cost effective. We've been hearing that for so many years and knowing that there was a way to do it. So thank you for giving us some hope that we actually can get some solar going here. And particularly the emphasis on including that in our curriculum, putting those systems on site and making that part of our science curriculum. We've been looking for that for so long. So thanks for being here tonight, and thanks for giving us some hope that we can actually make this happen sometime.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Oh, that was such an interesting topic. It's like, don't really want to get back to business, but we got to talk consent agenda.
Move consent.
Wait, Dr. Throsian has a question before I move to consent.
Before the board approves consent, I'd like to call attention to consent item number 3. It's a compromise and release. The incorrect student ID number was listed in the suggested action. The correct student ID number, 2340786475, has been updated in the agenda, and an updated copy has been provided for you, and it'll be reflected in the minutes.
Okay. With that notation, I'll move consent. Trying to get there.
I'm just going to ask if that comment card that came in was for the past item.
It was.
So I think we should take the public comment for the solar item before we move on to consent. But hold that thought, Rob.
Okay.
Thank you for this is my first time speaking at the school board meeting, so thank you for having this space. I love that you guys are doing solar. I think that's amazing. I really, really, really hope you do it now. Something that came up really recently and was in the news is the climate strike that all of the students did, the walkout, and I think that this speaks exactly to that. Students have spoken out that we need to do something about climate change, and this is exactly the kind of project that they're looking for. As far as Edison's rate going up, I attended a meeting that Edison was doing about the new wildfire danger, and what they're doing is they're wrapping all of their conduit in new insulators. That means that they are going to be replacing every single residential line in the city because of the wildfire danger. Because what happens is the leaves and sticks blow up into the lines, and that's what creates the fire. So they're going to be putting an insulator over that and replacing every single line. So if you don't think the rates are going to go up, you're very incorrect about that. Something that I would love to see, maybe that, oh, he left already. is there a possibility for hookup for electric cars? If they're already running lines from the solar panels to the meter, can they run them the other direction and put in car charging ports? If they're already going to have columns there and they're already running conduit, maybe that's something you guys would like to bring up with them. And then on one specific one, he mentioned Santa Fe Middle School, panel B. He mentioned possibly putting in bleachers. You may want to check on the height of the panels if you guys do want to put in bleachers in the future. So thank you very much for your space and for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Sorry, I didn't do that. Brian Tyndall.
Thank you, Brian.
All right.
I didn't submit a speaker card. May I speak on this item?
As long as you'll give
Okay, my
Ms.
name
Huff
is
your name and
Karen
address.
Suarez. I've been a resident of Monrovia since 1981, homeowner, taxpayer, and this item is music to my ears. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a huge draw to the community. I think the sooner this gets implemented, the sooner people see that Monrovia is keeping up with the energy times, and I think it'll be a huge attractant to the community. And I'm sorry I didn't speak at the beginning of this item, but would maybe recommend, would anybody from the public like to speak on item H? We would have known that was the time to speak before. But thank you for the opportunity to be here to speak on this. And I just think it's a really good thing for the carbon footprint that we need to, work on in every capacity possible. And I just think it's such a winning situation with school being, in full swing during these peak usage times to have this opportunity to use infinite energy source and other ways that we've been getting energy has been completely, finite. So I think the sooner we work on this future model for this great energy production would be terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Any more speaker cards? No. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to consent.
All right, with the notation of the number and the document before us, I'll move approval of consent.
I will second.
All right, Ms. Huff, would you take the vote, please?
Board Member Travanti?
Yes.
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board Member Wong?
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board President Gilliland?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, we'll move on to action items. Educational services. Dr. Kaiser, would you talk to us about our Learning Genie Incorporated software?
Yes, I'd be delighted to. Board President Gilliland and Board. The Board of Education is requested to approve a software as a service agreement with Learning Genie for the 2019-20 school year. The Learning Genie provides early childhood education teachers and administrators with a powerful tool to enhance child and program outcomes via the Learning Genie app, a user-friendly portfolio and assessment app for the teachers to collect and organize desired results, developmental profiles, data efficiently. This desired results developmental profiles is the state-required assessment system that our preschool uses. And the budget implications are that the funding for this program will be derived from the California State Preschool Funds, and the cost is $2,200.
Questions or comments?
Move approval.
Second.
Ms. Huff, please take the vote.
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board Member Wong?
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board Member Travanti?
Yes.
Board President Gilliland?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right. Moving to the last page of our agenda. Ms. Wu, would you talk to us about our resolution proclaiming October 14th to the 18th as National School Lunch Week?
Yes, Board President Ms. Garland, we would like the board approve the resolution to proclaim the National School Lunch Week in the middle of October. Our child nutrition program, including the National School Lunch Program, Federal School Breakfast Program, Child and Adult Care Food Program, and Community Eligible Provision Meal Program. Those programs provide very important health and well-being food to our kids for their learning and growing. And those meals also actually balance with the cost and the nutrition. And in the 18-19 school years, our district served over 200,000 meals for the breakfast, over 439,000 for the lunches, and over 100,000 for the suppers, and as well as 57 snacks. And we welcome all the students, parents, and community join us in the week of October 14 and 18. And also I want to take this opportunity to thank all our food service workers and cafeteria managers and all the workers. They work very hard. Some of them come to the school before 5:30. And also I encourage our parents that make sure that you fill the application for this school year. It doesn't matter you qualify free, reduced, or paid meal. All the application you submit to us, the state actually will reimburse even if your child is in the paid status.
I just have one question. Actually, Mr. Wong he can ask.
I was just wondering when our fearless leader is coming back to lead the food service group.
Yeah, he's scheduled to come back on April 2019.
April.
2020.
April 2020.
Yeah.
Have we heard from him? How is he doing?
I heard him earlier, and I think he's doing great. He's helped out to move around.
We have such a great food services staff. They do such a great job. We appreciate them so much, and we miss the leader there.
That's right.
He's off protecting this country and serving us in his capacity with the military. So we thank him especially. Any other questions, comments?
I don't have a question, just a comment. Ms. Wu said that we're bringing food to our kids to allow them to learn and grow, and that's absolutely necessary. And without that service that we're providing, there will be less learning and less growing, and it's so important. And I so appreciate the fact that you are that you have made this resolution and that you are working so hard to make sure that all of our students have access to breakfast and lunch and supper.
All right, could I have a motion?
I will move.
Second.
Ms. Huff, please take the vote.
Board Member Wong?
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board Member Travanti?
Yes.
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board President Gilliland?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, moving on to pending board issues. Dr. Throsian, do you have any?
Thank you, President Gilliland, members of the board. We've added the facility needs assessment prioritization list to the list of items, and really in terms of our legislative advocacy, just like to note that there are several bills that are with the governor ready to be signed, none of which include additional funding to schools in terms of whether it's the increase to the LCFF base funding or the equalization of special education funding.
That's so shocking after all the politicians were running on the policy of bringing this state into the top 10 of funding for schooling. I'm just shocked.
It is disappointing because there are some issues such as the late school start time that will definitely incur some costs for each of our schools. So there are a few bills out there. I've provided a summary, and then there's also the growing legislation and concern across the state and actually across the country about vaping, and that in this district, I think it was last year or 2 years ago that we banned vaping from our schools and put the signs up, and we're fortunate to have the grant, one of only 2 districts in LA County that were awarded a grant to educate our parents and our community, and of course our students about the dangers of vaping as that newest phase.
Really quick, as an add-on to the vaping conversation, I hope we are updating our material on a regular basis. I mean, there's been a number of issues this last week on the number of deaths and hospital stays with mystery illnesses that can only be attributed to vaping. A number of things within the business world are changing wildly on this.
CEO left today.
Yes, the CEO of Juul left today, which was a really interesting conversation in which they had pointed out that he was the CEO of basically a startup company, not of a medical company or anything else. So his point of view and focus was not necessarily the same as others would be. But I think in the coming days, weeks, and months, the number of studies that are going to come out are going to be overwhelming based on the health crisis that's occurring. A number of states have already banned it within the state. And so I would like to make sure that we stay on top of this, and as rules change within the LA County and the state, that we make sure the parents are well informed of what's going on.
That's actually a good segue if this is a good time to, or do we wait till new business? Okay. So thank you, Brian. That was a good segue. So I do have something prepared here.
Is this for new business or is this for?
New business.
Okay, we're still on.
Actually, if
board
it's,
issues.
Board Member Travanti has advocated as an individual and written Assemblymember Holden about vaping. If we'd like to continue the discussion about vaping and advocacy about that's something that we can discuss here or new business. It really is the president's prerogative, as always.
Well, let's finish up with pending board issues and then we'll get to new business shortly. But there are two items I would like to get included in pending board issues. And one of them just occurred to me tonight, and I really haven't had time to check to see if it's on there. I don't think so, but we left the discipline policy hanging a few sessions ago. And we need to get that on pending board issues so that we don't lose track of it, because that's a very important committee and their work is very important to us. So.
That was included when we tabled the board policy, and it is included here and is scheduled to come back up the second meeting in October.
Okay, I apologize then. But like, it occurred to me tonight and I hadn't had a chance to look. The other thing I would like to get included here is an item on our meeting with the city, because there's several issues now that we've talked about that the city has indicated some interest in having a discussion with us. So even though Mr. Chi is gone, I think we need to go ahead and work on getting a meeting with the city scheduled. All right, old business, October 9th, 23rd, and 13th will be our next Board of Education meetings. And moving on to new business, there's a calendar, a list of activities coming up, and I believe Ms. Travanti has a proposed new business.
Yes, thank you, President Gilliland and fellow board members. A few weeks ago, you received a copy of a letter I drafted regarding the current epidemic involving our youth locally, regionally, and nationally. There are dangerous products being directly marketed to our students, flavors like bubble gum, cotton candy, and unicorn puke. Can you really picture a 40-year-old man using unicorn puke in a vape pen? No. Can you? This serves as a gateway to adding TSH oils and nicotine to the vape pens, and as you know, nicotine is highly addictive. Although nationally, teenage smoking has decreased, vaping is increasing exponentially and causing great harm, which is what Mr. Wong spoke to. We have all read and heard the stories in the news about seemingly healthy kids ending up in ICU fighting for their lives. No one at this time knows what the long-term effects are from these lung illnesses. However, CDC and the FDA are now involved and have launched investigations. Here in our district, we have seen a substantial increase of vaping and tobacco incidents at middle schools, but especially at our high schools over the last 2 years. Students vaping in restrooms has even happened in classrooms. Vape pens come in so many forms and can be disguised in many ways, including as US thumb drives and even inserted into laptops to charge and use. Even hoodie sweatshirts are now being manufactured to have vape pens at the end of the drawstring. I hope we never have to hear of one of our own ending up in ICU or worse. I'm asking my fellow school board members to jump on board this issue with me and sign the letter on behalf of the entire Monrovia Unified School Board. And with your approval, we will make changes to the letter, and it's on district letterhead, to send to all of our lawmakers in Sacramento. Together with the anti-vaping and tobacco outreach, awareness, and this letter, Monrovia Unified is making a stand. So I ask you if you're interested in being part of this letter.
Well, I would have to read the letter. I'm not sure.
Of course.
Nobody wants vaping. We've outlawed it in our schools. What the legislation is, there's another question as what that needs to look like. I don't have enough information right now to know what is. I know that we as a society have to stop this, and certainly we as a district need to do everything we can to educate the students and the parents. But I'll be more than happy to read the letter before I.
If we can just put it on the agenda as an agenda item for our next meeting, have it circulated perhaps in our weekly package so we can make any comments. We can have it executed then at that time if it's appropriate.
Yeah, sounds good. So, okay, Ritza?
Yeah, that's fine.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Any other new business? All right, then I will adjourn the regular Board of Education open session meeting at, there is more new business.
No new business. I have a question. The solar, can I ask a question?
Sure, I'll ask it.
Can we put this on for future business?
Pending board?
Pending board issues?
Yeah.
Thank you. Done.
All right. Any more questions?
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That's fine. We'll get that on pending board issues also. All right, then I will adjourn the regular Board of Education open session meeting at 10 minutes after 9.